Why is it so important that Wizards of the Coast acknowledge that the Open Gaming License OGL 1.0a is in fact irrevocable and it cannot be deauthorized? Because I see some confusion about this, especially if there's going to be some kind of new license that comes out. A new license does not help a lot of the situation. It might change the way things happen going forward. So people might choose to move to a new license, but the problem is that that doesn't change things that have already been published under the Open Gaming License. For instance, new name, same person says, forget about WotC and their OGL. When the Orc license comes, we can go there. Well, it's certainly possible that people may choose to publish under the Orc license in the future. But remember, the value of a license comes in no small part regarding what it is actually licensing, not the terms of the license itself. You can have a fantastic license, but if that license doesn't actually license anything at all or anything of value, then that license has little value. The value of 1.0a is that it is an open license for the material that is published under it, and that's a lot of material, not just Wizards of the Coast. And as Ryan Dancy has said, you can use the OGL on your own game system. You can write up your own game system, write up your own rules, and publish it under the OGL. So that license would have additional value because it licenses some other game mechanics. Theoretically, when it's released, what will give the Orc a lot of value is that Paizo is going to publish under it, and so presumably Pathfinder 2nd Edition and all of its mechanics will be available under Orc. So that would provide a lot of value to using that license. But that does not in any way eliminate the need for clarity on 1.0a because of all the material that is published under it. For instance, here is The World of Ataltis that is produced by Mechanical Muse, Mark Tassin. He's been on the channel. This book right here, The World of Ataltis, is published, it's sitting on shelves, and it is published under the terms of the 1.01a. That's in the back of this book. This book has been published using that license right here. So what is its legal status? A new Orc doesn't do this book any good, right? This book is sitting here on shelves with that license in the back, licensed under that agreement. This book was published with a certain understanding of what that license meant. A certain understanding that, as far as I'm concerned, is completely correct, that the industry has been using for 22 or 23 years. Suddenly, WotC is trying to say that that license does not mean what it actually means. So, suddenly, that's what publishers are upset about, is that all of a sudden, what is the legal status of these books? The Pathfinder 2nd Edition book, Pathfinder Core Rules. This book right here has been published under the terms of the OGL, 1.0a. So the legal status of 1.0a needs to be recognized so that we understand the legal status of this book. So many of my friends have books, and including me, have one product that's been published under the 1.0a. It's got that license in the back. Now, we could go back and republish. You could republish something, you could publish something again, lay out, reprint everything, publish it under a new license if you wanted to. But that doesn't stop the fact that these books were published under that license, and they exist, so we must know. So there are also comments like this. Vodastar says, I think WotC needs to actually issue OGL 1.0b, which is exactly like 1.0a, but adds the word irrevocable. Then whatever they do with 2.0 is fine. If we don't like it, we can safely ignore it. And that's not true. This goes back to the idea that the value of the license is in what it's licensing, not the license itself. Now, it could be a good license, could be a bad license for whatever it's licensing, but that value is in what it's licensing. Wizards of the Coast could publish tomorrow 1.0b and have it be exactly the same as 1.0a, but add that word irrevocable. They could do that like Vodastar says. Okay, then that document would be out there. And by the way, they would have to do that because as we've been discussing on this channel and with Ryan Dancy, the OGL 1.0a is copyright Wizards of the Coast. They have the copyright to that. That's what stops you from taking all the text of 1.0a, adding the word irrevocable and saying, hey, I've got a new license, because you don't own the copyright to that license. The license itself is copyright Wizards of the Coast. Otherwise, you, if it wasn't, you could just copy all of that, insert the word irrevocable, and say, here, I got a new license here. It's 1.0b, I'm going to call it, or you call it whatever you want. People can start publishing under that now. If you did that, what type of value would that license have? None, because you just wrote that license out, you posted it online, said, here, this is available, and it's an open license, but it would still have no value to people because there's nothing that's published under that license license is actually licensing. Okay, so that's the reason why you can't do that and just solve the problem by republishing it yourself. So why can't WotC do that? Well, okay, WotC could because they own the copyright to the license. So they could put that out and they could say, here's 1.0b, and it added the word irrevocable. Bresh is a similar sentiment. He says, I changed my stance on this after watching a video by Legal Eagle on the subject, and third-party creators are safe as long as they don't use any of the copyrighted names of any of the D&D monsters or characters in their products for tabletop, because WotC can't copyright the rules and systems of D&D since it's just a game. So producers like Critical Role, Dimension 20, people like that are safe. They are actually talking about other big third party corporations that wouldn't make a movie, for example, WotC can step in and enforce. That's almost verbatim from the video. We could certainly go back and re-argue whether or not this particular book, or Pathfinder, or the Thrones and Bones book, or all of my material that was published under it, or any other material, whether or not it actually needed to be licensed under that. We could certainly have that discussion, and we are having that discussion. We could go back and say, no, actually, now that I'm looking at this book, and in light of this situation, did I really need to release it under the 1.A license? And maybe that would inform different choices going ahead. But that doesn't change the fact that the book was released under that license. We can have that discussion, but that's irrelevant to the facts on the ground. The facts on the ground is the books and the material were indeed licensed under 1.0A. It's in the back of the book. Whether we actually needed to or not is irrelevant. It was done. It's in the back of the book. It was released. That is why recognizing the legal situation of 1.0A is so important, and Wizards of the Coast must recognize that it cannot be revoked and it is not capable of being deauthorized.